Political Editor Andrew Clennell has been listening into that news conference as well. Andrew, we might start on Iran and Iraq. I suppose this is very much expected, particularly after the sanctions decision by Donald Trump, but it continues for Australia, all precautions being made according to the PM.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. And look, I mean, he was quite clear the troops are staying. And as we said yesterday, our understanding is as long as the Americans are there, the intention is for Australia to be there. There did seem to be a bit of wriggle room, though, didn't there, in terms of he saying it's stabilised at the moment. I mean, you know, what happens if there's a few more attacks? Is he going to move there without the US moving? Let's see. But let's see what the PM had to say about this.
Our goal remains a united and stable Iraq, and the focus of our efforts is in countering Daesh and its support network. This is the mission that we've been part of as part of a broad coalition, and that remains our mission, and we remain tasked to that mission as our people there in the Middle East are pursuing. So we remain committed to carrying on this important work.
I suppose to some extent, Tom, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, if he leaves them there and something bad happens and there's casualties, he'll get blamed. But if he moves them out at this early stage, he'll look like he's cutting and running, and the Americans won't be too happy about that. So he's, you know, keeping his options open. But the clear steer we've had is we're following the Americans on this one.
Yeah, and as you say, you'd expect that right now, given from where we were yesterday and the uncertainty about how much it would escalate, where it came to now. I don't think that's a surprise. One thing that did jump out to me, one of his answers, this was to do with whether Australia has a role around the JCPOA, this nuclear deal that, of course, Donald Trump didn't like, that he pulled out from. It was stitched up under Barack Obama. He was asked about that and whether Australia has a role to sort of help link countries together, be on the same page. He said, I think President Trump has summarised well the status of the JCPOA. He went on to say Australia is very committed to nuclear non-proliferation, but Donald Trump hates the nuclear deal. Australia has been a supporter of it. The last time I checked, I don't know whether he was talking about some other summary of the JCPOA there, but is that an indication maybe, I don't know, we're having second thoughts about it?
Well, he does seem to be very much at sync with Mr. Trump after his American visit, doesn't he? So, yeah, interesting comments there.
I wanted to get your thoughts as well, Andrew, on bushfires more broadly, off the back as well of the column you wrote for Sky News. It's telling, isn't it, how many days in a row now we've had extensive news conferences from the Prime Minister detailing all the things the federal government is doing, announcements each day as well, funding one day, the National Recovery Agency announced on another. Now, it's no surprise, but this is a stark contrast.
Oh, they've got their act together, haven't they? And I can see that you see that, Tom. Basically, he looks statesmanlike almost today. He looks calm. He's seeking to be empathetic, to appear calm to bushfire victims, to tell people it's all under control. Look, don't worry. As we know, tomorrow's going to be hot and windy in New South Wales, and he's saying we've got naval assets off the south coast. Obviously, that wasn't the case last time fire hit, and we're ready to go. We're ready to evacuate. If he'd been more this way from the start, he wouldn't have had the political problems that he had. And I think you can trace it back to around December 10, where the fires were, you know, really starting to kick off. And Mr. Morrison gave a press conference on religious freedom, for goodness sake. And I think on that day I thought, oh, well, he's going to get up and talk a bit about the fires or something. And there he was about religious freedom. And then apparently this has been a thing on the ground with the RFS volunteers upset that he was asked then about payments for volunteers, and he said, well, they want to be there. Apparently that's taken off a bit on the ground, including among coalition voters. But since then he's worked on that as well. He's providing payments now. But it is a big contrast, and I mean, I think I said last week and earlier this week he could recover from all these sort of gaffes that he's had, including Kangaroo Island yesterday, where he forgot momentarily that 2 people died. And I think we're seeing the start of that recovery now. But I mean, as I wrote, Tom, you know, these days as PM you can do 100 things right, you do one thing wrong. And, you know, the public aren't really paying attention till you do the thing wrong. So, you know, most people know he went to Hawaii. They know about the problems with visiting the fire-ravaged communities. he needs to say about 1,000 times what he's actually doing in order for it to resonate. And as someone in government said to me this morning, people are paying attention now. They wouldn't normally be in January, so we've got to get back on message, and that's what they're doing. Now, let's have a listen to his announcement today. He talked about the latest announcement in terms of some of the disbursement of that $2 billion he's initially committed to recovery. Let's listen.
So what I want to happen is, if you're a mayor out there in one of those areas today, you're out there in your community, you're seeing needs that you know need to be met right now, and people are asking you to meet them. I want to give them the confidence and support by providing this cash assistance right now, so they can say, yes, we can do that. Yes, the council can move in and do that. The Commonwealth is supporting us to go and make these immediate decisions, which can provide immediate relief. Now, this can go to supplementing the work that is being done to support the rehabilitation of local infrastructure. It can be on local roads. It can be on restoration of facilities. It can be providing staff and services support in their local areas to assist with whatever the need may be.
Now, let's face it, Tom, $1 million a council isn't going to get very much. It isn't going to do very much, but he's making it very clear, the Prime Minister, that there's a lot more to come, and he just wants to get some money out there to those councils and communities immediately, but he'd want to get a lot more out soon. Of course, there is difficulties with that in terms of the fact that at the same time as councils are looking to recover, the fire threat's still there. It's an extraordinarily difficult situation for authorities and for governments to deal with. But he's saying, yeah, for roads and infrastructure, I mean, obviously, if there's probably situations with roads where people can't even get through. So $1 million a council and 42 councils, and an interesting sort of $18 million there for Andrew Colvin to decide if some communities need it more than others.
Yeah, the councils that might have a lot more damage. I mean, it was kind of interesting because you'd assume the initial $1 million is sort of what's at this level right now in your community. You just got to fix it straight away, whatever that might be. But he also said maybe you want to fix up the local sporting club, and that's fair enough, but you'd think that would probably come in a few weeks. Look, it's interesting as well, you mentioned his comment about volunteer firefighters, they want to be out there. Well, in one sense, they do. They're volunteers. They want to help their community. But the issue is, when you're not out there on the ground talking to these people, you don't hear them also saying, well, I've already taken 5 weeks leave. I don't know how many more weeks I can do. And that's the thing that is hitting home for people about this long bushfire season, which the official government agency, the Bureau of Meteorology, says is here to stay.
Yeah, I mean, we could see this sort of situation till March easily, even April, couldn't we, potentially, a worst-case scenario. And you're dead right. I mean, Albanese's been saying a lot about this in terms of meeting firefighters who are fighting fires all over, say, New South Wales or other parts of the country and not getting much respite. And certainly I've heard anecdotes of a lot of 12-hour days, and you really have to hand it to these people. They are heroes. I mean, that term gets thrown around loosely. These people are absolute heroes. And I think if there's any good news on this front for the Prime Minister, he's gone out there and he's talked to more of them. You know, when he was in Hawaii or when he was giving press conferences on religious freedom, he wasn't talking to fireys. Now he is, and now I'm absolutely sure he gets the seriousness of it. He knows it's not your ordinary summer bushfire, which of course we always get, and are usually over in a couple of days. And he knows just how tough people have it out there. The more he can get out there and hear more, the better. And, you know, some of his visits have had the cameras, and there have been a couple of problems there. Some of them, you know, we know haven't had the cameras, and they're important visits too, for him to see the scale of the disaster. Yeah,
speaking to one advisor yesterday, they said they are very important to get a real grasp and get a very natural reaction from people as well without the cameras. Not that we're saying, you know, don't let the media in.
Yeah, let us in.
Do a bit of both. Andrew, yeah, exactly. I'm never going to talk against media access. Andrew Clennell, thank you. We'll talk this afternoon.